Hey, what's up guys? It's Coach Karina. We're gonna work on a couple of extension-based exercises today, and we're not going into a huge range of motion with all of these. I think these exercises are really accessible to all of our athletes because they don't require huge amounts of mobility. And these are both exercises that help train the base stability that we need for a lot of the other lifts that we do and the bigger full body movements that we do when we're on our feet. So both of these exercises are pretty close to the ground. In our 4x4 matrix, our first one is called a 2-2. We're in a suspended spine position and you're just moving. There's no resistance, there's no pattern assistance. So we're doing plank, but we're doing it with a little bit of extra. Just like always, we take an old favorite and we add another layer to make it a little bit better. So the way we're gonna get into it, we start on quadruped and you find neutral. You arch, round, arch, flatten, find that neutral. And I would say here, because we're gonna go into plank, which is pushing us toward the floor, we might wanna err on the other side a little bit. So round a little bit away from the floor. From here, we slide one leg back, maintaining that same pelvic position, and then we slide the other leg back. The glutes are on, super hard, like you're squeezing those cheeks together as hard as you can. I like coming down to the elbows here, simply because I wanna give my wrists a break from all the pushing that we usually do with the push-ups and all that. So forearms on the ground, forearms parallel to each other. Glutes are on super hard. We don't want any of this. When we start to see this, it's time for a break. So glutes are on, abs are drawn in. From here, just take the elbows and slowly, pull them just gently toward the heels toward the feet a little bit. And that turns on the core in a different way. Hold it for maybe 10 seconds and then push away. Elbows away for 10, elbows back in for 10. And let's see if we can stay there for a minute. Adding this, so that's already a little hard for me. Adding this layer to a plank challenge will significantly decrease the amount of time that your athletes can hold the pose. And that's okay. That's okay. If somebody is usually able to survive in plank and maybe gets a little sloppy and gets a little wiggly, say for 3 minutes, they might be able to do a good 20 to 30 seconds in this version. That's okay. We like a little bit of solid quality work with good attention to detail, as opposed to a ton of work, which takes you more time in your workouts, that maybe is a little bit sloppy. So I'd rather see a solid plank hold that somebody works up to 1 minute than something sloppy that lasts for 7 or 8.
All right, guys, so second exercise is on your back. This is a lying down exercise in which we're using pattern assistance. This is a 1-1. So band's gonna go around the knees. It needs to be a kind of a stiff band. Stiff enough and tight enough around the knees that it feels like there's some work associated just kind of with opening the knees to hip width or shoulder width. The legs are going to stay there the whole time, but I want there to be a little bit of work associated with that to get the glutes on the way that we want them to be. So we're going to do a bridge. I know you've done thousands. We're going to do it a little differently. You're on your back. Notice my toes are up. They don't need to be totally off the ground, but just light. Most of the weight digging into my heels. Feet are about hip and shoulder width apart. Knees are hip to shoulder width apart. I'm going to start with my arms on the ground. Shoulder blades are kind of pushing into the ground. My hands are pushing into the ground. This is additional pattern assistance. And then I'm going to do my strong pelvic tilt. So I'm getting rid of all this gap in here. Any gap in my lower back like this is going to take away the integrity of what we're trying to do. So we're going to flatten the back. Again, I'm pushing here with my arms. Tailbone tucks. Glutes are squeezing super hard. And I roll up one vertebrae at a time. And as I come back down, I do the same. I put one vertebrae at a time back down. My tailbone releases last. Squeeze and lift. So as I come up to the top, this is about as high as I can go and keep the neutral position of my spine and keep my glutes in charge. There feels like there's a little bit of work in my hamstrings and my back, but the primary driver here is the glutes. And we lift up and then we come back down, nice and slow. And the glutes and the tailbone is the last thing to come back down to the ground. If we don't do this, if we just say get those hips up as high as you can, and we're doing this with this arching in the back, they're going to feel strain and a lot of work happening in the lower back. It's not that we don't want the back to work, it's just that it kind of strains it because it's an uneven distribution of the load. A lot of work in the lower back, minimal in the glutes, and a lot in the hamstrings. They may even cramp. So if we can do it the right way, squeeze, drive with the glutes the whole time. The glutes are in charge of this movement up and down. The experience will be different for your athletes. Again, set a timer for a minute and go for it, and have that be the main focus. Again, if the glutes do a better job controlling this movement on the ground, they're also going to do a better movement in lunging, deadlifting, any hip hinge exercise, kettlebell swings, squats, etc. And we'd really like their help on our feet, so let's make sure they know what they're doing when we're lying on the ground. So have fun with it. Hit me up with any questions. Tell me how your experience with plank and bridging changes with these subtle little adjustments. Go for it and have fun.